Producer Joe here from the Working Fans Podcast. And at the Working Fans Podcast, this is just a podcast that three lifelong fans created to have a place to talk comedy and pro wrestling. Now, our comedy podcast releases every Tuesday, while our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday. We release bonus episodes under the moniker Working Fans Presents every now and then. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, any major podcast provider. The important thing is just please like, rate, review, subscribe wherever you listen to us. Now, we have started a new thing. We are now on Amazon and Audible. So those episodes release every Monday. And that's kind of going through the archives and just releasing our old episodes into new areas. So if you want to live through the process with us again, take that journey with us again, you can find us over on Amazon and Audible. Now, if you can't get enough of us in the audio form, check out our YouTube. It's youtube.com/C/Working Fans Wrestling Pod, or just search Working Fans Podcast on YouTube. We have the whole archive is up there. And if you listen to the Working Fans Podcast, you are more than familiar with the 531. That is our signature segment where we take your top 5 lists on a particular subject, vote it down to a top 3, and then debate it down to a top 1. Now, guys, if you want to hear 3 guys talk shit about comedy, wrestling, life, anything, you will enjoy the Working Fans Podcast. Fans, welcome back for Working Fans Saturday, episode 47. This week, we are talking the best sellers in the game. And if you follow the Working Fans Podcast, tomorrow, Working Fans Podcast presents Horror Business Episode 2. I'll let you know all the horror offerings on Hulu. On Tuesday, me and Dave pay tribute to the great Leslie Nielsen, an actor that holds a special place in all our hearts. Thursday, we are talking top indie prospects, and we are talking to indie talent Carmen Chaos. She is our first LGBTQ guest. And Saturday, UFC Fight Night, 196 preview. Next Saturday, we will be talking top 5 celebrity appearances in wrestling, as well as our top 5 of the week. Let me play a quick commercial, and then we will bring the guys in.
All right, baby. We're live.
Working Fans Podcast, bitches.
So we're on our own, me and AJ. And, man, I want to say right now, I'm just excited to be here, man. I'm excited. I'm fired up. Me and AJ we got a show we're doing later tonight.
Oh, yes.
You know, check that out.
We're going to go live, baby. 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock here.
10 o'clock Central Time for you folks out there in Michigan. What's the name of the show, Dave?
Sparks and Marks, I believe. I'll have to.
Sparks and Marks, because we're going to bring the sparks and y'all are a bunch of marks.
We'll have to check that out. Now, we got today's top 5 we're going to be doing is the top 5 sellers. What I mean by that, too, is people who sell in the ring. Guys like, I'll just give you my top 5, for example. I'll start off. Ricky Morton. All right. Ricky Morton could express pain. He looked like a lot of times like he was just reaching out for somebody in the audience. Like, you know, please help me. I need you, you know. I think it was Ricky, too, that I heard say one time that he would look for people like in the audience when he would do that, too, to make eye contact with. And that was a big thing. Try to make eye contact with somebody in the audience.
Ricky Morton looked like your little sister when she's getting her ass whooped in the neighborhood and just begging you for help. Please help me. Please, Dave, help me.
But he came back. All right. But now Another guy I had to put on this list was Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat looked like he was in agony sometimes. Like he was just getting murdered. And, that was a big thing with him in his matches with Flair. Flair also was going to make this list. So you can almost group them together. Flair, one of the great sellers of all time, back and forth. Some would say Flair was like a routine guy. And, maybe towards the end of his career a little bit. But, actually, Flair had a long end of his career. But Flair was a great seller, especially back in the heyday.
Only for the last 40 years of his career. It's fine.
Well, his career went 70 years. Who knew? Another guy I had to put on this list was Kevin Von Erich. I thought about all the Von Erichs, especially. Kevin was one of the great sellers. He was a guy a lot of times who would get beat down, and he could always come back and make that, great big babyface fiery comeback. And I thought Kevin was definitely an underrated guy. And another guy who might not make a lot of people's lists in terms of selling, but I think he does a really good job, and he's realistic in everything he does, and that's Iron Anderson, Double A. I think Iron is one of those guys that, when he's getting beat up, he looks like he's getting beat up. For a bigger guy, too, he bounces around really good, and also Iron looks believable when he's actually on offense, too. So that's what I came up with for a top 5, but AJ, and I'll say one more thing too. Some people I didn't mention because I was thinking of all time, but I remember I thought Kairi Sane was another one who I thought when I watched NXT, like Kairi made me feel bad. I legit thought Kairi was like a young girl getting the shit beaten out of her, and I always felt bad in the middle of a match for her.
Very Ricky Morton-ish.
So
my top 5, and I'm glad Dave clarified, because when he said top 5 sellers, nobody sells the bread like Dave. I was going to put him on my list. Thank
making
God he
that
clarified.
money.
Woo! But my number 1 I put on there, the first guy I thought of, believe it or not, Dusty Rhodes. Dusty Rhodes, for a big man, would bleed. He would take a beating in there, and he would get that crowd behind him, not just with his promos, but also with the beating that he would take early in matches and high-profile matches. And while he didn't do that in all of his matches, he would definitely do it in his higher-profile matches, and I thought he could sell his ass off. Number 4 on my list, are coming in my second spot, Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat, one of the great sellers of all time. The man would take a beating and just get the sympathy of the crowd. And he was also just such a great technical wrestler that when it was time for that comeback, he would get the crowd fired up behind him. I think we're all going to have Ricky Morton on our list, anybody in our age bracket, because that's what he made a career out of. Their whole chemistry, their whole formula for the Rock and Roll Express was Ricky Morton taking ass whooping for 20 minutes and Robert Gibson come in for the hot tag. That's literally what they did every night, and it worked, and it was awesome. Number 4 coming in on my list, my 4th spot. To me, this guy's underrated. I don't think he gets enough credit in the modern era for the beating that he takes. I think people remember a lot of his high spots, and they remember how people are behind him. But Bryan Danielson, the American Dragon, currently in matches, the way he was able to play was being the underdog, similar to Ricky Morton, and being able to fire up and come back with those amazing comebacks. And still to this day, he does it. I mean, his match last night was absolutely incredible.
One you're probably not going to have on your list, I think we're both two when you said Bryan too, Kofi Kingston. It's another guy too.
Kofi's not on my list. He's definitely a great seller. I'm not going to take anything away from him. Both him and, quite frankly, Apollo Creed. Jesus Christ. That's what.
Yeah, I know you meant. You're talking about Xavier Woods.
Xavier Woods. Sorry, for some reason I went back to his freaking. But Xavier Woods does the same thing. Absolutely great at selling it. But neither one of them made my list. So let's not talk about the New Day. My number 5, and this is one of my favorites of all time, is similar to Dave. I thought that the way Ric Flair took the beatings in the ring and the way he sold it as a heel champion in the territory days, you had to be able to make whoever you were wrestling look like gold. And the way you did that was basically by taking an ass whooping for 40 to 50 to 60 minutes and then finally finding a way to win the match. And that's what Ric Flair did. So kudos to him on his selling.
3 guys I want to throw out here, too, that we didn't mention. Just 3 more guys. One I think will surprise you. I'll save him for last. Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig.
Absolutely.
Tremendous bump taker, flying around the ring.
Cut his career short.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Another one would be when we're talking about Dusty and we're talking about Rick and Iron, we probably should include Tully Blanchard. He was the guy that was probably bouncing around more than anybody a lot of times in there.
I think the problem with Tully is that there's such a short window of his career that was actually in the national spotlight. If you look at his career, while he did wrestle for a decent amount of time, he only had 2-3 years that he was actually in the national spotlight between the NWA and WWE. I mean, it's debatable, maybe 5 years at the most.
Yeah, I was thinking 4, so that's fine.
Yeah, but it's still a short window that he was actually in that position.
And another guy I'm going to put out here, and maybe more towards the beginning of his world title reigns, he was known for not selling a lot of times, and he was known for actually being superhuman. But at times,
Goldberg,
Hulk Hogan would take a beating, and he'd look like he was crying back in the day in those early Saturday night's main event. Sometimes, like there were times when he was getting beat down by Cowboy Bob Orton or Rowdy Piper.
Even as a heel, Hogan knew when to sell, what to sell, and when to fire up. That's and even as a heel, when he turned more heel, he had to take the beatings from those baby faces.
Right.
And he knew how to sell. Was he good at it physically? Maybe not so much, but he knew and understood the chemistry of how to sell.
And one more guy too, since we're talking, I'm getting a little excited about this. If you ever want to watch great selling, the best selling, the most realistic selling, watch Shawn Michaels versus Hulk Hogan from SummerSlam a while back. Shawn sells his ass off for this man.
Bumping around like a Super Bowl. And by the way, how do we not think of Shawn Michaels?
I know he probably should have been on both our lists. Actually, I'm making a joke, but he should have been on our list.
Oh man,
So I'm going to say though, Ricky Morton, I think, has to take this. Though I think Ricky Morton is just a guy to me that was just Ricky Steamboat. You could argue that too.
Well, we could start off by dwindling it down to 3. How about we do?
There's only 2 of us.
Steamboat, Flair, and Morton. How's that sound for a top 3?
Sounds fine. I think Steamboat and Morton are going to be your 2 finals.
I think those are the 2. Now that being said, I agree with you. I think Morton just relied more on his career on the actual selling, whereas there was a lot more offense for Ricky Steamboat. Ricky Steamboat spent most of the match still having some good offense, firing up. Whereas Ricky Morton really had how many offensive moves until currently? Now he does the Canadian Destroyer and Frankensteiners, and didn't see any of that stuff when he was actually on top.
Double drop kick, baby. Rock and roll was here to stay. Who knew it was, too?
Absolutely.
Now, we got a top 5 of the week. I'm going to throw this out here, too. I want to start off with something a little different, not just AEW, WWE. I actually got Impact here. There's a segment this week. If you haven't checked it out, I encourage you to. It is a sit-down between Josh Alexander and Christian Cage. They do an awesome job of building this. They're talking about Josh Alexander's background as the tag team champion, as the X Division champion, the great matches, how he grew up right near Christian's hometown. They're going at it for Bound for Glory. They're putting over the fact that Josh Alexander gave up the Impact X Division belt for this and how important this was, that he was willing to risk everything because he wants this world title. And I think it's definitely worth checking out. This made my top 5. Also making my top 5, we're going to talk a little bit about this more later before we get out of here today. Daniel Bryan, Minoru Suzuki on the buy-in last night. Great matchup. I'm glad we got it on YouTube for free for everybody to see. Absolutely loved it. Sticking with Rampage, the main event. Again, we'll talk about this a little bit more later. American Top Team versus Inner Circle. Really, I enjoyed this. It was a little clunky at times, and it was some of the reason why I enjoyed it, and we can get to that later. So I don't want to go too much on that right now. Another thing that made my list, this started actually last Saturday. It was announced, but it went into Impact as well. Billy Kay and Peyton Royce are now going to be known as the Illusionist or the Illustrious Ones. I'm not sure, but not the Illusionists. But they will have a new name, and they're coming to Impact. And I'm excited to see these girls. Actually, they're already getting a shot at the tag titles, and I think this will be something good for them. And the last thing I got on my list is Roman Reigns calling Brock Lesnar a dumbass after they signed the contract. And he says, you didn't even look at it. He said, you're just some farm boy. And then Brock having I looked at it already with my advocate, Paul Heyman, and the look on Paul's face. I just thought Brock has done so well with just a little bit of lines he's been given, and it's not too much on the verbiage. It's just enough, and Brock's delivering it perfectly.
Yeah, I think it's great that Dave went first on this one due to the fact that we haven't had Dynamite yet, and there's a limited amount of moments to the week. It really took up everything that I wanted to talk about, so that's tremendous.
Why don't you give me some feedback on some of that stuff? Not counting the Rampage stuff. We can talk about that in a minute because I know.
Now, maybe we should talk about the fact, and maybe this isn't a moment, but we should talk about this at some point. The fact that NXT by itself this week, still with no big moments to actually talk about. That's delightful. But
it's a different show. It's like it's like watching Global Wrestling Federation in the back day. It's like you like wrestling and you want to see. There might be some good stuff. You might see some guys who are going to come up, or you might see some guys something bad too that sucks. And
yeah, I was like, is it 4 o'clock ESPN? I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, it's not a prime time. It's in prime time, but it's not a prime time show anymore.
It's not even one of those shows now where I get home and I'm like, oh, I got to watch this.
No. It's
sad.
Yeah.
I was more excited for Impact this week, and like you, I enjoyed the Alexander and Christian Cage. I think they're doing a great job of building where Alexander's going. He is a machine in that ring. You talk about somebody who can work, bump their ass off, and do everything. Josh Alexander's got a very bright future in that. He reminds me of bigger Daniel. What's his name there? Garcia. Yeah, that's what it reminds me. Plus, it's nice to see Christian Cage. He's doing almost a little bit of a heelish move on Impact, so it's nice to see the little back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah, he's really good at that too. He can play both sides.
Yeah, that's like Dave in the locker room. But on Friday, yesterday, SmackDown did a great job. I love the interactions. Like you said, that was one of my highlights, Roman Reigns and Brock. I think Brock is hitting it out of the park right now. Where has this personality been? Is this something we've been hiding for years that he can do this? Because we have we've missed out if that's the case. I don't like the fact that Roman Reigns insulted him by calling him a farm boy. Nobody should be compared to Randy Osgood. I don't think that's fair.
Shout out, Randy.
Shout out to Randy, who I have not seen on our bottom line at all, so I assume he's not watching. I know that that was a big moment this week. I love the contract signing, and Paul is doing a lot without saying a lot. Paul is doing a tremendous job of looking absolutely terrified every time Brock says his name. Of oh shit, is Roman going to figure this out? Or oh shit, there's nothing going on here. Why are you doing this to me, Brock? I also, another moment this week for me was the interaction between Becky. I'm loving the interactions between Becky, Bianca Belair, and Sasha Banks. I think that they are elevating that women's division once again with their work. That match that Sasha and Becky had, to me, was on par with any match this week, except for maybe Bryan and Suzuki. That match obviously is on a whole nother level. But I thought, go ahead.
I just want to say I want to add to that, but I also want to clarify earlier too. By the way, they're going to be called the Inspiration, Billy Kay and Peyton Royce. So
I like him better as the Illusionists.
It's magic.
you can see him in Vegas reading people's minds. It's great.
Bound for Glory is in Vegas. So.
Absolutely.
Check it out.
My number 4 for this week is actually going to be CM Punk versus Matt Sydal. I thought that this was the first time we really saw what was in the gas tank for CM Punk.
I thought he got tested. Tested.
Yeah, you could see that keeping up with Matt Sydal and how good Matt Sydal is. And quite frankly, maybe a little underused Matt Sydal, but it's just a whole nother level. And it was great to see and how alive the crowd was for that match. You got to remember, they don't think about this because it's the first match on the live show, but that match had just come off of seeing Daniel Bryan and frickin' Suzuki, and they had to keep up that energy throughout that whole match. Those are two amazing matches back and forth.
Absolutely.
And then my number 1 spot of the week, I'm with Dave on this one. Suzuki versus Bryan, or against Bryan Danielson, American Dragon, absolutely tore the house down, and that's my style of wrestling. So for me, I basically had a hard on throughout the whole thing.
Let's talk about that. Okay, so
I don't
care what you did. One negative thing I'll point out was really negative. I didn't even know. It's more of a question. Did they waste that match putting it on the buy-in? Yeah. Okay. You know where I'm going right away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did that. I mean, you didn't. 90,000 was the max that thing did live. That's not gonna create. That means more people are probably watching SmackDown at that moment. And I don't think that's against AEW. I just think people are consuming live TV
Well,
on
it's also
Friday.
I think it's also easier for people in general just to flip on SmackDown than
Yeah.
it is to go to YouTube and watch the show and figure out how to enlarge the box and turn it sideways or whatever you're doing with your YouTube.
Yeah. See, for me, I got this TV. I got a Roku TV, and I have a YouTube app. So literally, I just go to the app like I would anything else, and I can watch it like that. So
I was watching them both simultaneously.
Me too. So I actually was happy because normally I watch SmackDown through this guy's YouTube TV, and sometimes we can't watch them.
We don't do that. That would be illegal.
Right. So anyway, yeah, we don't share any of this stuff. So anyway, but I forgot SmackDown was on FS1. So when I went to go on my other TV and I put on Sling, I said, "Oh wait." So I was able to watch both at the same time, which is what I really wanted to do. And I had Brian and Suzuki on the bigger TV because that's what I really wanted.
Yeah, I did a similar thing because I have the YouTube TV app on my phone. So I actually watched on the app the freaking SmackDown while I was watching on my TV the YouTube also. So we both made the same choice.
Yes. Now, so I don't know if it was a mistake or not. I mean, overall, it's just the way people consume TV.
Now wait a minute, because it has gotten more views today. It's almost up to 500,000 views today.
But that's how people consume YouTube, though. Like, what was the point? My guess is, what was the point of it?
To me, it was a bit of a mistake, and I'm going to tell you my opinion as to why it's a mistake. Because of the way people consume it, it's not necessarily working like a normal buy-in. Right. A normal buy-in to me puts people on the channel, and then you stay on the channel to watch the next show.
Right.
If it's not on the same channel, how is it actually a buy-in?
Yeah, and it doesn't look like they took anything out of SmackDown's audience.
They took nothing from it. If anything, they're going to get people talking about it now because it was just such a great freaking match.
Right.
And it is going to draw a lot of views to YouTube afterwards, and maybe that's what they were going for. Tony Khan's a genius. Who am I to freaking question Tony Khan? But the guy, but we don't know what he was driving for. Maybe he was driving more for the YouTube than he was for the actual buy-in to the show. Maybe he figured, but he put on CM Punk first, which tells me that he's trying to drive views to the beginning of the show.
And and commercial free in that match too. But also, I will say this too, though. It'll be very interesting to see how those half hours actually line up. But I'll say this too. Just because you try something and it doesn't work out sometimes, it's not a bad idea. Sometimes you just got to try stuff.
So here's what I'm thinking is maybe next time, instead of doing the buy-in on TNT, do the buy-in on like TBS in that hour beforehand. And freaking throw that in there, and now you're getting traffic to both of your channels, and the person's going to switch from TBS to TNT and draw traffic to both of your major stations there.
Now, that being said, getting all that junk out of the way, what a fun night of wrestling, I thought. Like I did.
Both shows were electric.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the main event. I thought they did perfect with Junior Dos Santos because he was believable. He was a little clunky at times, but everything made sense. It made such sense. Like, this guy wasn't trying to swing people off the ropes. They would get close. He'd throw some right hands. He'd kick somebody. They were selling because
he was doing what a fighter would do.
Right. He rolled out of something at one point. And,
but he also took bumps. I mean, he went through the table.
He took a couple bumps. Him and Hager went through the table. Yeah. Hager was able to pick him up one time and run across the ring with him. And that was good, too. The story of, like, Jericho struggling with this guy, but then tagging in Hager, and Hager matches up better and takes him down. And then,
even the end there, I know some people aren't going to be fond of the way that they're coming in the ring and beating up on Jericho or whatever.
I liked it. Heat.
But I like it. You're talking about getting heat here. People are going to hate. First of all, people from the MMA world already don't like America's Top Team. Now you're drawing heat in the wrestling world also. They might be the best heel faction right now anywhere.
Dan Lambert is awesome at getting heat with that audience. He knows exactly what to say to piss them off.
He is one of the most naturally unlikable human beings I've ever seen.
Yeah, it
kudos to him.
Congratulations, Tony Khan, man, on getting Adam Cole, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and whatever other skinny little dorks you can convince this dumb audience to believe that they're actually real men. It's just so he knows what he's doing. He's good at it.
We do have to talk about one other thing. Is there a better athlete or a better performer right now than the Spanish God?
He was great. He was flying around that ring. He sells awesome. He's another great
When
seller.
he does that nip up and then slowly brings himself up into that nip up, where even Taz is freaking sitting there going, how the hell does he do that? It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
So
he's fantastic.
you talk about the pillars of AEW's future. He's definitely one of those bright pillars. Him,
Yeah.
MJF, freaking Jungle Boy, and now
Darby
Adam
Allin.
Cole.
Well, Darby Allin. I think
Darby
it's
Allin also.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but Adam Cole is going to be right there too. He's a guy that's just a little more, I think, established, but at the same time, like.
And we keep forgetting about Hangman Page. That's another guy who's still young and freaking. It could be a pillar to that organization.
Yeah, no doubt. Hangman is somebody like I am super psyched at the idea of Hangman Page is going to be now. We know going to be at the pay-per-view for the world title because it didn't look like they were going to do that at first.
I'm glad that he made it back due to the fact that I had heard rumors that he had run out of sick time.
Yeah.
So it's good to have him back.
That was very well done. Yeah, it'd be interesting, but we're having this world title tournament too. And now whoever's going to win that is going to get a shot at whoever the world champion is. And that's probably going to be Hangman Page, I think. I don't think we built this whole journey up for Hangman just to lose. I could be wrong.
I think at some point you have to at least give him a chance. Put the belt on him, give him a chance.
Yeah.
And will it be a long he could be a transitional champion.
Did you hear that Tony Khan was at the Jaguars game and he had a pen and pad out? I know this made a couple of news sites apparently, and like you could see what he had scribbled on there, and it was the Full Gear card. Like I think he had like Moxley versus Bryan Danielson on it, and Omega Page, and it had Britt Baker ? And it was some other. I was like, oh my god, this is great. Oh, FTR and the Luchadors there. Why am I drawing a blank there?
So the Lucha Brothers.
Yeah, Lucha Brothers. Thank you, brothers.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's hard to remember brothers. So one of the other highlights for me of last night, and I know that I've already done my top 5, was Bobby Fish is absolutely killing it right now. His match with Lee Moriarty, who, by the way, got himself a contract after that match also.
Oh, he got it right before that, actually.
Was it right before? I just saw that he is all elite. So.
Yeah, he's tremendous.
But a absolutely great job by both of them.
Mm-hmm.
They made that match look as legit and tough as anybody could. And good card placement, putting the bunny in between there because that was just straight garbage.
I have to say it too, as far as Bobby Fish goes, he's looking really good. Like this is awesome to see him getting a singles run again now. And that exploder suplex he did to Lee.
Oh God, yeah,
on the ropes, that looked deadly. I'm looking forward tonight because tonight we get Fish versus Danielson.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. The card tonight is absolutely stacked again.
And 2 mask guys are going for the AAA belts.
I'm interested to see who they're going to be. Are they going to necessarily go Latin due to the fact that they're going to be with Andrade, or is it going to go in a different direction? I don't. I would like to see it go in a different direction. I would like to see them not stick with the racism that every Latin person's friends and every
he just might have friends that are from Mexico.
But it's also possible that he has friends that aren't Spanish.
And they're going to be in a mask too. And is it any more or less racist than if it's just a couple of white dudes underneath the mask?
Well, no, they're going to be under a mask at first. That doesn't mean they're going to stay under a mask. At some point, you're probably going to freaking break them out from underneath the mask.
I'm also looking FTR.
I am also. That's possible. I'm also looking forward to seeing Pac versus Andrade again.
Yeah, that's coming up on Rampage
next Rampage. Yeah.
So building up these Rampages, it looks like now too. Rampage, I know didn't get the best number last week. Maybe that's part of the reason, or maybe it's just time to build.
Maybe it's because it wasn't a live show. I think that it makes a difference when it's a live show. I think that taped shows are never going to do as well. I mean, people. We don't look at spoilers, but there's a lot of people out there that do look at the spoilers, and there's a lot of people out there that turns them away.
I don't know. Yeah. People don't view TV as much the same way as they used to, too, though. Some people, I mean, some of these tape shows are doing great numbers, but I think that's also a difficult time slot. And if you look at last week's show, too, they had some good matches, but I can't remember if they had anything that was like oh, we got to definitely watch this. Or
Well, that's
see
what I'm
that.
saying is
Yeah.
the problem isn't necessarily the spoiler. It's the fact that with spoilers, people go, well, I don't really need to see that sometimes. And that's what might turn them away. Whereas if they see a spoiler and they're like, well, hell, I need to see that.
You almost have to go really hard, too, because of the time slot, right? Like Friday night at 10 o'clock. It's just a tough time slot, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's a horrible time slot.
Now, I think that'll be about it. Anything else you want to touch base on?
Well, as usual, I want to say, hey, fans, thank you for tuning in. This is the Working Fans Podcast. Find us on all of our platforms, including on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on the great YouTube, along with all that AEW products. You can find us on Audible. You can find us on anywhere in the human world, Amazon.com. You can find us anywhere where you can find podcasts or where you can actually tune in and watch or listen to these sexy voices. You will find us. So please keep tuning in, rate, review. I'm AJ Strangebrew. That man is
the man called Dave. Take us home, Joe.